Yeah, so welcome to Spearfactor, Mr. GR Tarr. A man that really needs no introduction. Um, it's been diving, I think, since 1965, you said?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
The shop history part learned how to ride a bicycle.
that's incredible. Oh man. So you're from Florida originally? You said you live in St. Petersburg?
And use birds just across the bridge from Tampa.
Yeah. Now, I mean, okay, so you've spent I mean, I remember in the episode with Shrek you were saying you were a track star basically and you went on scholarship.
Yeah. I was an athlete, and I ran for University of Texas. Um, I was trying to do really good big things with that, and then I hurt my Achilles tendon. And so when I came back home, I finished up at University of South Florida. Uh, and as soon as I got back home, got a job. First thing I did, I went out and bought a motorcycle, a dirt bike. So I love dirt bike racing. I couldn't do that while I was riding on the track. So got really heavy into that for a few years. Um, I always dove and spearfish, but not with the level I'm at now or anything. But when I was about 37 years old, the motorcycle racing, I was the oldest guy in the track, and I didn't like breaking bones anymore. So I stopped doing that. I went all in into spearfishing, kind of you mentioned earlier. I just went all in, and I started doing tournaments and meeting people everywhere, and uh, just went from being I don't know how deep I can dive to diving really deep. Using bush league equipment to making my own equipment to make getting better and better equipment, and um I've just been really passionate about this sport, this hobby, since about the same time you, about 2000. Right in there, like late 90s, 2000. I really took off.
Yeah, I heard you mention that too before about dirt bike riding, and I remember like as a kid growing up in the 80s, how massive, it was, especially in Southern California. You'd go out in the desert and we'd watch On Any Sunday the night before, and
Greatest film ever.
I know, and
Well, Safer.
yeah, and I still remember that song in my head too. The guy just bailing, through the desert, and but you're right, the whole bone breaking thing was a big deal. Because you just eat it, especially when you're young, going for it. And I remember like my dad, when I got my scholarship offer, he's like, "Yeah, no more dirt bikes." Like, but if you're serious about this, and then yeah, but what a great time in the '80s dirt biking. I mean, my neighbor. This is one of the coolest memories of first grade. I remember I was in like first or second grade. My neighbors across the street, they were the Clark boys, and then they were all probably in their high school. They look really old to me, but they used to ride their like uh 250. They're like YZ, like Yamaha 250, up and down the hills and stuff. And I remember one day, this has nothing to do with spearfishing, but I was a kid and I remember there was a cop, a helicopter running around like chasing, and I remember seeing one of the boys like racing down the street on their dirt bike, and then I was like, "Wow, where's he?" And he like ghost right in the garage, hit the thing, and then all of a sudden over the hill comes a police helicopter. And it was just funny back in California in those days where like, I mean, now I see kids on e-bikes and I'm like, I don't, we used to get like chased by the cops like on our dirt bikes on the street. But yeah, I don't know why I was telling that story. But anyways, um, your whole time, rough besides the track, what events did you run?
800 meters and 1500 meters and cross country as well.
Oh, the I ran the 800 too. Well, that's a brutal race. Um,
Fall races. I love
yeah. What my whole goal was like running was like I want to break sub 2, and I did it. And then I watched the Olympics. I ran like a 157. Then I watched the Olympics, and guys were on like 142, 140, whatever it was.
it. Yeah.
And I was, how do you run like that much fast? I ran as hard as I could. It's incredible to see how fast they are. Just their top end too.
Yeah. Today, I think if I follow track today, I mean, I watch it pretty much every day on YouTube. I keep up all the races, who's racing, who's what. And it I think the same thing's happening in spearfishing is that because of YouTube, you see all these guys on a week to week. You see all the races they run. You get to watch every one of these big races over and over and over again. And you get to mentally, get prepared for it. And right now, times are dropping like in every event. Like they're breaking world records every week. And I think YouTube has a lot to do with it because it just shows, when you were running and I was running way back when, all we have is the last race we ran, the experience we got from that. What would we do different on the next race? Well, now you can sit there and watch these guys and go, watch this guy pass this guy on the inside. I never passed anybody on the inside ever. And you watch like Cole Hawker, like in the Olympics, he just jumped right on the inside and won the 1500. And, came out of nowhere. But it's a move that he does all the time. You watch him. He's like, he just sits and waits. And he just sees that little opening and he shoots through it. And, I've been a guy that passed every in lane 3, it's just off the chart.
I remember too, like that time in my life, because I was a football player, but somehow I ended up running the 800 and the 400. And I remember like, I can run with the fast group. Like, okay, I can go with the fastest guys. And my coach kind of, when I was younger, like telling me, go with them.
Yeah.
You'll see it. And then like really learning how to stride out and basically run them down and then making sure you have enough kick. I think the first time I did it, I went to kick around the corner, like to gun it, and there was nothing left in the tank because I didn't, I wasn't mentally prepared. I wasn't smart enough really how to run that race. And fortunately, my track coach was a Olympian for Barbados actually, and great coach. I didn't realize the level of coaching you were getting at the time in high school. And that guy like taught me, like he just was whistling for me to switch gears, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3.
Yeah.
And man, he made me fast. It was really cool to see someone that knows what they're doing, what they can do with just Joe Schmo. So yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other benefit to that to GR is like the cardio is insane. Your ability to dive.
No, I attribute that to like my diving because I think, obviously you have to have a pretty good set of lungs, a pretty good heart, pretty good circulatory system to do that kind of thing. And I think same thing in freediving, you've got a lot of things that are going on. You got to be able to do, and like, when you're in a tournament, it's the endurance aspect of it. And you're swimming, um, diving up and down, up and down, up and down all day long. Sometimes some of the dives are stress dives. And some of the dives are down, you shoot a big fish down deep and sharks are coming and you got to get that fish off and you got to make that judgment call. Obviously not a stupid thing, but you got to keep moving that fish toward the surface as best you can. And, you'll get the observer sometimes be a little gassed. And, I don't like to, I never like to push a dive. I mean, that's one thing about me. I tell everybody, I hate when I hear divers talking about, I'm going to push down. I've never done 100 feet before, but I got to go 100 feet. I got to push to get 100 feet. I've never pushed a dive in my life. I glide down nice and easy and, hang out and come up when it's time to come up. I can do that all day and I feel good. But, sometimes you see these guys out there, they just really want to push it. And they're the ones that ends up blacking out. Or I've never had a samba. I've never blacked out. I've never whatever. And I've dove super deep. And, done a lot of cool stuff. But I think it's just kind of like my philosophy. It just has always been just to glide down and, be part of everything that's going on there and, not get emotional while you're down there.
I think that's a really good point. I remember spearfishing for years, and then I started paying attention to social media, and then all of a sudden I started caring. I found myself caring about what depth I was diving to, when 15 years before it didn't matter because it was shooting fish. Here in California, the kelp's like 60 feet.
Right.
Like there's no need to really dive. I mean, and I was content with that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, uh, these kids are diving to 100 feet and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I guess I should be doing that. I should, because I've been diving so long, I probably should do that. And then it took me um, a while to realize, as a competitive person, you're like you said, I got to go to 100 feet. Which is the polar opposite that you should be doing. When you're free diving, it's all about relaxing. And I struggled with the relaxing part And I think it was because I actually gave a shit about depth, and I never did before for like 15 years. And then once I remember where I was said the story before, I was diving with some friends on a reef, and it was in Guam, so it was deeper. And I remember that day I just like gave up and stopped caring and just I'm actually going to try to enjoy this. It's 83-degree water. It's beautiful. And all of a sudden it was going 10 feet deeper, just in a comfortable way, like you said, not stress pushing through it.
Yeah. So, it's funny you mentioned Guam because I dove over there, dove Saipan, um, Tinian and all that stuff. And that was, one of those trips where I was really diving deep on that trip. Um, but, backing up, like you, I mean, I grew up here on the west coast of Florida, and, 60 feet of water was like the deepest I ever freed over. And I hardly ever did that. Most of the time it was 25, 35 feet of water, most of the fish we shoot. Um, but, we shoot a lot of fish. I mean, we used to go out and just, blast and just get tons of fish. And then we had a commercial license and you even choose as many as you wanted. And, I got days where I shoot 100 fish. It was just a trigger pull, that muscle memory, just that doing it over and over and over again. It just got really, easy for me to do that. Um, and I went to a tournament up in North Carolina, in Cape Hatteras, back in the day. And that was the first time I had no idea. I heard it was supposed to be a blue water tournament. So I'm thinking, okay, well, you dive 25, 30 feet, shoot wahoo, no big deal. Yeah. Well, they're up there and they have all these deep wrecks. These African pompanos were like the fish you had to get. And these things, after they had like 20 guys in a wreck, all dive in this wreck at the same time. These fish all push down to the bottom. Well, you start gliding down and gliding down a little further, and next one fly down. Next thing you know, I'm down there in the sand at 110 feet, and I don't belong there, but I was there, and after Pombo came by, and I shot him, and, ended up getting, I think, like second in the tournament or something. But, it was and I realized then I can do that. I can go those deeper depths. And yeah, I do plastic fins. I do crushy plastic fins until about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I'm just doing
Likewise.
basic, basic equipment, and, no watch, no clear dive watch, no anything, just diving and, just diving how you feel. And, but after that tournament, I met a lot of guys there and we all started talking about, going to different places around the world, spear different types of fish. Um, and that's when I got into it. I was blue water fishing, hook and line fishing in Costa Rica a lot back then. And I, knew about the big tunas they had there. And the captains told me, yeah, we get, 250, 300 pounders here all the time. And so I put together a trip to go there with some of the guys I met at that tournament. And we all went down there and, none of us ever shot a fake tuna before. We all, I made my own tuna gun from scratch, just pictures from the old Terry Moss book, I said, okay, I got it for an influence track in there. Let's do this. Let's do that. Just, I had lucky. I was a woodwork shop around the corner where I lived. And, I went over there to see Mr. Hoss. He's an old guy. We laid it all out on paper. I actually would draw it out on big long sheets of paper, the whole thing, how I wanted to live there and built that first tuna gun. Took it to Costa Rica and shot. The first trip I shot like 3 fish. All of them were over 250 pounds. And, just using basic gear, basic stuff, and not really knowing what we're doing. It was pretty cool. And everybody on the trip all shot great fish too. There's a Roberto Reyes. I'm too familiar with him. Yeah.
Yep.
And he was a great guy. He was on a trip. Ralph Tiemann, California guy, older guy. He was on that trip. Gary Sanchez, local Florida guy. Sherry Day was on the trip.
Okay, I know Sherry. Yeah.
There was just Jerry Guerra. He come on the first trip. He came on like the second or third trip. But he ended up coming down there all as well. But all of us were just getting these giant tunas back then. Nobody was ever doing that stuff. And, it was pretty. I think we got 12 fish that were over 200 pounds on that trip. And it was just exciting. And from there we just kind of got more and more into it, and then started traveling more and going to different countries and targeting different species and in fact I'm leaving I'm actually leaving on Thursday this week. I'm gonna go be in the Azores for a month. Gonna be hunting over there for big eyes and bluefins and whatever else comes our way. But I'm gonna be over there for a month. just diving every day. So it'll be exciting.
With your technique you guys were using for the when you were in Costa Rica, um, did you kind of make it up as you went along, or did you have?
No, it was kind of as we went along. The captain was the guy I fished with about 5 or 6 different trips, open line fishing. He knew basically what we were wanting to do. He knew the direction the tuna were going. With the dolphin schools, the spinner dolphin and all that. So he'd set the boat up and we drop in 2 divers, 2 guys just slide off the back of the boat. And, we would just go down about 20 feet and just level off. And you'd start seeing the small tunas. And the key there, and anytime you're a yellowfin tuna, is don't look at the small tunas. Look down deeper from where they are. Don't even give them any. Just keep looking down and keep gliding down a little bit further if you can. And the big ones were usually kind of flanking off the sides, and they just come right up. And literally, you could shoot one almost every drop. Every drift you wanted to. But as we went on, you got more and more selective. And in fact, the last 2 trips I did to Costa Rica back in the day were very selective. I didn't pull the trigger one time on either one of the trips. I had hundreds of tuna come out. I had 250 pounders from me to you, just like just right here. And I wouldn't even pull the trigger on them because I was waiting for that for one of those, like a world record, like a 350 or something like that. And we'd seen some that size. It just, was really, putting in my juice there, trying to get that big one, but never was able to make it
What were some tips as far as like I heard you mention like you started before you started with a pole spear, so did like many of us. And what would you say are some key things that you keep in mind, maybe subconsciously now you've been doing it forever, but when you're trying to get close on that fish, like for bluefin out here, it's like you try to wait till you see the detail in the eye and you're close enough when you can look in their eye and kind of see the details and then take the shot, especially in the blue water. Do you have any tips for people?
happen. I think in any fish, there's no such thing as being too close, taking too close of a shot. There is, but there really isn't. You want to get as close as you possibly can. That's what hunting with a pole spear does. It teaches you to get close to your target. Um, and hunting with a small gun. If you all your normal trips, not a moving tuna trip, but like all your normal trips, if you're used to shooting with a small gun, it means you got to get closer. You get used to that, and then now your circle that you're trying to, you know, me is 15 feet. Anything inside 15 feet from my face, 15 feet from my face, I earn it. That's like my space. And if the fish just comes within that area, I know I'm going to get them. And so the key is to get that close. How do you get that close? Well, one is, you'll pay a lot of attention to the fish. I think if you ever go with a camera, recording a regular video camera, you can get so close to fish because you're not going at them like this, trying to shoot them. Your eyes aren't like looking at them like, I got to get you. You're just more like kind of just there thing, just kind of, and so I learned a lot holding the camera. And I found that, you can get really close to fish if you don't pay a whole lot of attention to them. So just yesterday or 2 days ago, we were out diving for African pompos out here. We were in deep water. We were in 160 feet of water. And the key with those fish is you just got to wait. Like you'll see them, but you go down, level off, find where you are. And I was leveling off about 70, 80 feet, but still gliding. I'm still sinking at that point. And I would literally take my hands and put them on my face like this and just close my eyes and just like look. And you see the African pompanos coming, and there's like a school of them. They're all kind of coming like this. And the first thing they do, they turn, they go, kind of go away. And you put your hand over your face like this. You just keep peeking, and they'll turn and come right back to you. And if you look on my Instagram, you can see some videos where Mark's doing that. And it's really cool. It's fun playing with them like that. You can just make wahoos the same thing. You can do the exact same thing with a wahoo. Wahoos are 2 ways on the wahoos. You can do the hand thing. You can also just dive away from it. If you see a wahoo is down here, if you just dive off like 45 degrees away and just swim down and away from it, and then just kind of hold your breath, just wait, keep looking the other direction. And then all of a sudden just kind of turn. And they're usually like following you down like that. You just kind of just turn and just take that easy shot. And I kind of got really good at that. And we get a lot of wahoo runs down at Key West and stuff. And it's fun when you're diving with a lot of wahoo and you can kind of learn that over and over again. It's a game that you play with them. But it's fun. Well, even like dogtooth tuna, they'll come right up to you. And the key is not, don't extend your gun. I hold my gun back. I keep it back until I'm ready to shoot. I just keep it back like this. It was, as soon as they're within that 15-foot range, and I just fly it out and shoot. And, it works. It's just a really kind of like patented thing I've kind of been doing over the years. It just really works for me. And all the guys I dive with, my close friends that we dive with, I coach them on it, and they all do it, and it really works. Oh,
Yeah, I've talked to Jerry from Niptonics, Jerry Greer, and he was saying that the same thing about the Wahoo dive away from him.
yeah.
And they'll come in and like, yeah. Um, no, those are good tips. With you diving so deep for these APs, do you ever get squeezes? I mean, I know you've been diving forever, but did you ever get squeezes?
I've gotten squeezed twice. The first time I got squeezed, I thought I was going to die. So I didn't know what it was. I never heard of it. Never heard of lung squeeze. It was like, I don't know, 20 years ago, maybe 15. I don't know how long. It's been a long time ago. And it was we were in a tournament, the St. Pete Open, so world's largest spearfishing tournament. It's kind of a weird tournament because you can leave the night before, but you can't dive till the next morning. So we went like 100 miles offshore and anchored up in this spot in like 240 feet of water. And we chummed, a sandball chum and with sardines, dead ones, live ones, just made it rain in the morning first thing. And I hopped in, and I was just going to just do an easy checkout dive. And I hopped in, there's a nice blackfin tuna. Big one, probably like 30 pounds, good sized fish. And he did that, kind of kept going down, kept going down, kept going down, kept going down. And I just, sort of following him. And then, and I was using a reel, which is stupid. I would never do that again. Like dive in deep water with a reel. But I got down and I heard my soon-to watch have it set at 100 feet and just go beep and make a little noise. And so I knew I was at 100, and I kept thinking I had the fish. He was right there. He's right there. He's right there. And then finally he turned and it came like right across me and I twisted like this, persisted. And I was at 120 feet. That's when I came to the surface. That's where the depth. If I shot the fish, and now I'm struggling to get to the surface, and I've got the reel just peeling off, and it's a race to see who gets to the surface first, me or the fish. And I got to the surface, and everything was cool, and I took a couple of hook breaths, and I was good. But and the boat was right there, and I fought the fish all the way up, got it up, put it in the boat, and I felt something weird in my throat, like almost like we were like congested, like kind of like something like that. And I was in the water and I spit in the water. And see how red this shirt is? That stuff that comes out of you is redder than this shirt. I mean, it was like a gunshot wound, red, just blood red was coming out, and it kept coming out. At first, I was like, well, maybe maybe it's my sinuses, maybe it's whatever. But I felt this weird pain, like right here in your trachea, where your split is there for each lung, and I could feel pain there. And I was bleeding. I was like, coughing up this blood. And I was freaked out when the guys were like, man, you want to run a boat in? I go, nah, I think I'll be all right. I think I'm okay. I don't know what it is, but, I'm not dead yet. And, but come to find out later, I talked to guys and, like Darryl Long, was a friend of mine back then. We talk a lot. And, different people. And they say, oh, yeah, that you got to squeeze. And I go, well, I don't ever want to get that again. He says, well, tell me what happened. And I said, boy, I didn't warm up. So that's number one thing I do now before I die. I make sure I warm up. My warm up is just taking deep breaths and doing like some, twisting like this with a full breath and
Yep.
doing some of that kind of stuff and just, getting all that stuff in there moving around, as opposed to being and then if I do a 20-foot dive, a 40-foot dive, a 60-foot dive, and just, kind of get feeling good before I start diving. And I do that now all the time. Like I even, if we're going to go to a spot, I know it's deep, we'll stop the boat like 2 miles away from it. And I'll hop in the water, do my whole thing. And all the guys are like, look at the old man. He's over here doing all this sin voodoo stuff. Yeah. Because I dive with all the young guys. They're like, oh, what the heck? What's he doing? He's like the old guy watching the surf. The surf guy is sitting there watching surf, watching what's going on. So, yeah, I'm doing my little thing. And I said, okay, let's go to the spot. We go there and I'm ready to go. But the other time that happened, tournament, this is a couple of years ago, and the same thing, first dive of the day, hop off the side of the boat, and we're like 80 feet of water. And I was just doing my 20-foot dive. That's all I was doing. I wasn't planning on going down. This nice big cobia, like 60-pound cobia, comes cruising by. And same thing, I followed him down, glided. And I shot him. He went crazy, and I'm, fighting him like this down there. And I got to the surface, and I knew, oh no, here it is. And I could feel it, with this time it wasn't as bad. It wasn't the heavy duty red blood, but I could feel that I hurt myself. And it took me like a year to feel better after that.
What depth was that at?
80.
Yeah.
But it took me about a year to feel better. I could feel every time I take a deep breath, I could feel the pain there, almost like a scar. Like you just feel like something pulling in there. Um, and so I'm really really careful about that now. I just don't want to get that ever again. It's just not a good feeling.
Yeah, that warm up that you're talking about, Ted Hardy, I've talked to him quite a bit, and we talked, and he was saying the same thing. The best thing you could do to kick in your dive reflex too is just do that pre dive,
Yeah.
no gun or anything, just get down at depth and stretch your lungs out a little bit.
Gun. You can see if I have a gun in my hand and the fish in my pocket, I'm playing that song that's what's it, Top Gun song, right into danger zone.
I know, and it's funny because I've also been squeezed, so I know exactly what you're talking about, where that's that little like, "Oh, that's weird, I got a cough," and I spit, and I'm like, "Well, that's not good." Like, the first time I saw that, and then it just got, like, shallower and shallower, and then finally, like, it literally, like you said, is about a year, and I haven't been squeezed since then, but it it's kinda scary when you're like, blood, and I thought the same thing too, my sinuses, because when I used to, scuba dive for work, we would just bolt down as fast as we could all the time, just a testosterone fest,
Yeah.
and my sinuses would bleed, so it was like, "Okay, whatever," but the throat, it just felt like, you had something in your throat, and you just felt like you had to cough all the time. I don't know.
Right.
Uh,
It takes a while to heal. It's just I like to run, so I still go out and run a couple miles a day, three more miles sometimes. But you know, and after that, I couldn't even run. I couldn't do anything. I just felt that. I just didn't feel right. If you try and talk to a regular doctor, they have no idea what you're talking about. You know, and fortunately, some of the guys that died know what it was, and they told me. And now I have a. If I'm on a boat and somebody gets it, I know exactly what it is. I can tell them you're not dying. You just let it squeeze and you'll be all right. But the first time I got it, it was like fucking a gunshot or something. It's like this blood is just coming out of my mouth. Yeah, you have this visual of like foam blowing coming out of your mouth. It's fun like that.
it yeah, it's incredible how little information there really is, how doctors just aren't taught it unless they happen to spearfish too. One of my buddies is a trauma surgeon, and he dives with me all the time, but, like, a regular doctor, they look at you like, "You just stop diving. What are you talking about?" Like, um, it's pretty incredible. Even that, and even also, like, I've gone for my dive physical, and they look in your ears, and they're like, "Oh, it looks good," and then the some of the interns and the doctor looks, and he's like, "Hey, come here. Look in there again, and what do you notice different?" Like, because my ear canals are closing up from cold water here and all that.
Yeah,
Um, so it's just funny how little information is really in that. Because when I did my trachea, I was like, did the same thing. I had to message people that I knew were free divers, like Ted Hardy, and then also uh oh man, I want to give him credit because he helped me a lot, but I forgot. Anyways, um, but you just hit all the free divers up because they could give you the best information. And it's always like, how much should the blood was in your spit? And I was like, I was at more than 50%. Okay, stay out of the water for 2 weeks. If it's less than 50%, it's like very like, okay,
that was the protocol. Like you'll be good in about 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, I wasn't good.
right.
In 6 weeks, I wasn't good. I mean, I up with that. You know, but like I said, the good news is, I warm up and I, you know, got, and the funny thing was though, is like when I got the second time, it was probably 10 years after the first time, you know, and I kind of, broke my own thing by going after that fish, you know. And when I say going after him, I'm just gliding. I wasn't like kicking out, going chasing him down or anything. I just, glided down, said, okay, I got this. And I kept saying, I got this, I got this, I got this, but he kept staying a little further. And then when he got down to the wreck, he turned sideways, maybe a sideways shot. He had a video of that too. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, Ryan Myers is the guy I was thinking of. He's another deep diver, so I know he dives real deep. So I hit him up. Hey, have you ever experienced this? So thanks, Ryan. But that dance that you're talking about with the fish, I've got a footage of me and a doggy off Guam, and it's like this spiral,
Yeah.
and we're just kind of spiraling each other, kind of chasing our tail, just casual. And the exact same thing when I shot it, I didn't realize. I mean, it's so clear. I didn't realize I was as deep as I was. Nothing crazy, but like deep for me, you know. And on the way up is when I realized I was like looking at my watch. I was like, wow, okay. I was deeper than I felt great though, because you're just focused and relaxed.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that's another thing. You mentioned the word focus. I find if I'm focused on something, it seem to me I stay down longer. Yeah. So a lot of times I like to do a speedo dive. I like to dive down, get on top of a rock somewhere, get like I call it a lookout point or on a wreck. We dive a lot of shipwrecks around and stuff. Get on the edge of the wreck and uh, just scratch my fingers at the wreck. I got roll a rock in my hand and scratch the rock, cap the rock, and do stuff. Bring the fish in. I really have fun doing that. Like you got to call the fish in. They come from a distance, and you get their attention, and the next thing you know, they're like coming straight at you like this. I think that's pretty cool.
That's Cedar Cortez diving for sure. For us when we go for grouper or pargo. And I saw you recently went down there too. Yeah, I was looking like a sniper, and you got to get a good shooting position and hide yourself. Let the fish see you come down, and then hide so they come in close. And then, yeah, like you said, there's always the big grouper coming in for the headshot, and or the
Yeah, run down there, kind of make a noise, and just anything can kind of get them coming in. And the lakes, like for those the freshwater tournaments, you can go down this land the bottom. There's no carp anywhere. You don't see a carp anywhere. I just drop down to the bottom, land the bottom, start running. And man, these carp come out of nowhere. I mean, just come right to me, and it's pretty amazing. It's like it's almost like you're like a carp whisperer at that point. You can pretty much get them come at you unless they've been shot at. But if they haven't been shot at, they always come right to you. It's crazy.
do you like to do a lot of those freshwater tournaments or?
Started doing them a few years ago. I think I've done 4 or 5 of them now, and I really like them. What I like about it is a trigger time. You get to shoot a lot of fish. And you go there, and it's just like you shoot, reload, reload, reload. You get to string them all on your stringer like you used to back in the day. You can't do it anymore because they're sharp. But we used to, on the Gulf here, we shoot them and have them sliding down your float line, and have them all like on your and floating in your float line. But now you do that now, then 15 minutes you're not gonna have a float line. The sharks are gonna be. But in the lakes, there's no alligators, there's no sharks. It's just, it's shallow diving. It's like typically 30 feet max that you go in. And, shooting stripers and carp and that. It's pretty fun. I like it.
You said you went down and dove in Tinian and Saipan, and how did you even find out about those areas? Was
So,
it?
my buddy Cameron O'Connell, he was a merchant marine, and his first couple years out of the merchant marine academy, he had to go do his military stuff, and he was stationed in Saipan. They have the stationary ships there, and so he was stationed there. So he did a little bit of diving there, and he knew that there was fish there. And then another friend of ours over in Guam, um, he knew about the area as well, and so we just kind of put together a little trip. And we had a big group of guys that went over there. It was Mark Healy, Cameron, Craig Clayson. You don't hear about Craig, but Craig is he's a phenomenal diver. The guy, he lives in Louisiana. Well, he's not in social media or anything, but he's one of those guys that just it's the animal in the water. Guys, just covers nails, deep diver, strong diver, grin shooter, all the above. But we went there and we dove for a few weeks there, had a blast. And it was, it was really cool. But, Mark and I were just, bombing, you know, we were diving on the edge of Tinian. It was the last day, the end of the day, the sun was getting low, and we had an article on Why It's Good Diver magazine, but if I remember exactly correctly, it was I went down like 120 feet, and I was down for like 2 minutes and 45 seconds or something. From up to the surface, and Mark comes over. He meets me on the surface because we're kind of like watching each other, and he comes over and he grabs my wrist and looks at the watch, looks at me and shakes his head like this, and okay, I saw a dog teeth down there, good one, and so then he goes down, and he's down for yeah a long time. I come over to him, go surf. I was looking at his watch; it's like 1:35. I'm looking at him in the corner, like this, and then I go down the next dive, and I go down like 1:37, and he comes over again and looks at my watch. And I said, and that's when I saw the ding. I saw a 200 pounder. I said, there's a 200 pounder down there. I just saw him. He's right there, blah. So Mark, down he goes. And he was down for like 3 something at like a minute or 154 feet, you know, and Sulfur didn't have a shot at it. And we broke on the surface this squad. And when he came up 154, I look at it open. I'm done. I'm not going any deeper. I don't care. And the other guys were on the boat. They're like, these guys are crazy. We were just diving plastic fins, pressy plastic fins, just diving. And but what a fun trip though. We saw a lot of good stuff, and it's about first exposure to dogtooth. Giant trevallies and some of the cool fish that were over there.
Did you happen to make it over to Rhoda, the island of Rhoda?
We did not go to Rhoda. We went to Goat. I think it's Goat Isle.
Goat Island?
Yeah. And there were some we might have gone to Goat. I don't know. I don't remember it specifically, but we went to some reef. It was pretty cool. It was kind of like, I'd probably guess, like
Off the south end?
yeah. It's kind of be halfway between Tinian and Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
It was like 60 feet deep, 70 feet deep.
Yeah.
And that was a cool reef. There was a lot of cool stuff there. And that's when I got my first education on shooting moose. And those things are the devilfish, man. They were like, and that's where all the things that you hear about the thing with your hands and your eyes, the moo mask, moo mask. When you put it, lead a spear, lead fishing in your spear gun, and you hold it out in front of you like this, and you kind of look behind it, you shoot right through the fish and do the next fish. Anyway, it was what a spot. And we got a few of those, and that was kind of like the little fish is like a big accomplishment to get it.
It is funny how that place works. I've never dove so hard for such smaller, like, but I don't say, yeah, smaller fish. I maybe really appreciate our fishery here where we have these.
Well, that you gotta get the smaller fish because the big ones will kill you. Sierra, everything else,
Right.
It's smaller than
Yeah, but
that is like doing mine.
yeah, the big snapper. The big snapper. They got these like 35-pound big snapper, and I was like, well, something's up. My buddy's like, yeah, don't shoot them.
Yeah. No reason to shoot those. Just you're gonna get Sierra.
Yeah, the big doggies too. They're so deep. My buddy sent me footage of like a 25-pound dog. It's such good visibility there, and it's following like it looks like an 8-foot long dog tooth. It's the biggest dog tooth I've ever seen there. And then I dove there, my buddy, in about 100 feet. They had these 200-pound doggies kind of come cruising by. They weren't interested in us at all, but the thing that I found about that particular place, which really was humbling and kind of wild too, is the clearest water I've ever seen. In the island of Rhoda, because there's no rivers. It's all filtered from the limestone. And you think it's literally 30 feet, and the next thing you know, you're at 80. And it could be very dangerous for the squeezes when you're bombing down thinking, and that fish keeps growing and growing and growing. But it's such a cool place just because it's so off in the middle of nowhere from majority of places I would go. It's off the beaten path of any like really major tourists, but especially in Guam, it's still part of the US. So you still have rights, you still have a lot of like privilege that as US citizens, you don't have to worry about getting shaken down. You don't have to worry about a lot of the stuff. So it's nice, and it's still 83 degrees and clear. Yeah. But
the funny thing out there is the beetle nut.
yeah, the teeth. Oh my goodness.
was crazy, man. I sell gear out there, in Guam and Saipan and those places. Guys buy guns and stuff from it. And we'll usually have some kind of conversation or whatever. And I tell them, okay, let's say hi to all the guys in Team Beetle Nut. People start laughing. Hey, Beetle Nut, yeah. It's funny. It's cool to
Yeah, I
see and stuff like that.
yeah, and I do appreciate the camaraderie on the island, that how tight the community is. The spearfishing on the island's tiny anyways, and just on those islands, how we'll talk back and forth, and we show up, and everybody, like, we show up to, if we drive our boat over there, my buddy's boat, everybody runs down because they're excited because other guys are there and they want to dive with you so bad. It's really a cool place.
Yeah. The no matter where you go, I mean, I've been to so many different places, and it's kind of the same thing in the camaraderie and the entire community. It cracks me up. I'll go someplace in the middle of nowhere. Oh, you're GR Tarr. You're Red Thigh or whatever. I'm like, how do you know this? And it's kind of weird. It's just a small community.
It's awesome. It's kind of a joke in my house too. I remember first I got to Guam, and they're like, "Hey, Brett," it's some random person I never saw at the marina when I was in Guam. "I follow you on Instagram," and I was like, "Cool, what's up, man?" And then we just start talking, and it's just such a cool small community.
It's
Um,
really made it big. There's so much going on up there, and it's just you're out there all the time, and people like you got 6,000 people that follow you or whatever, and every time you put something out there, they're like watching it, and just kind of cool. It's kind of go back to the old YouTube thing, you know.
right.
They see you doing this, and they think that's how they think that all I do is shoot these giant fish, where in reality, I shoot little small fish all the time. Yeah.
Well, where would you say were some of the top places that you traveled to that you'd love to go back? I know I talked to Jerry recently. He's been to Africa. Like, um,
In Africa, I've been to West Africa, and we go about Dakar, and that place has the biggest Cubera snappers, you'll ever encounter. Whereas like from the waters aren't that clear, but tons of wrecks, tons of wreck and deep, like 100-foot wreck dives. But Dakar, West Africa was good. Obviously, I've been to the Latham Island and Emba Island on the other side of Africa, uh, Tanzania or you know Zanzibar, out that way. Then last year we went to Madagascar. Madagascar is really cool. I like that a lot. What I liked about it was the proximity of like the drop off to the reef. In other words, it's like there's a offshore, I call it an atoll, that basically it comes up to like within like 50 feet of the surface. It's like 80 miles offshore, and this reef runs for like 50 miles, and it drops off on the other side to infinity. I don't know how deep it goes. It's in this trench, it goes really deep. And so how blue water hunting is. You can get bored. You can be out there for 2 hours, not see anything. You're like, well, okay, I got enough of this. What are we going to do next? Well, there, you just hang a right hand turn. You go about 200 yards, and you're up on top of this reef. And they've got, long nose emperors, and they've got the job fish, and they've got coral trout, and they've got, all this stuff you can shoot. And then you have doggies. Like there'll be smaller doggies, like, 100 pounders if I'm cruising by. One of the guys on our trip, he shot one with a 90-centimeter gun, stoned it. Like a 90, like a wrong, I saw him swimming out to it. I go, no, 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 don't do it. He has like a little 30-centimeter reel on it. I mean,
oh man,
that was pretty bad.
I tried that once. That was a bad idea. Yeah.
The dog was here, and
Fortunately, the line broke, but yeah.
I liked riding there. That was fun. And the vibe was real good. The weather, where we wanted to go. If you look at Madagascar, the northern part of it, you go on that wind finder, you can see how that there's always this prevailing whipping wind coming off the north end, it's heading west, coming out of the east and heading west, and that wind kind of goes up and down that tip of the island up there. And when it goes up, you can get up in this little pocket right there, and that's where the good part. That's the good part of the reef there. That's the part that it's got all the fish, got all the stuff, and nobody really goes to because it's so nasty there all the time. You can't get there. And we were on the edge of that one night right before the sun went down. We were there, We said, okay, what's it anchor up here for the night? Well, we anchored up there for the night, and the storm came through and the wind came through. And I mean, it was like, victory at sea out there. And we were getting this pummeled. We were in this, 50-foot catboat, liverboard. And, water came in all the hatches. We broke the, in the front there where the anchor, goes. There's like a cable. It snapped the cable. And, we had all kinds of issues. And we had to start the motors up in the middle of the night and run in these like 14-foot white cap seas back into safety, like 10 miles back the other direction away from that event. And then, of course, the next morning, it was the last day, and we weren't able to get out there again. But that was like the spot I'd like to go back to. I like that area there. It's pretty cool. Um,
Who did you go there? Who did you go there through? Did you go there with like?
Chris Coates.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Coates set it up for us, and he did a great job. He's a great guy. He's really he showed me something really cool with we troll along the edge of that reef out there and catch live bonitas and put them in tuna tubes in the back of the boat. And then he would take the live bonita and run monitor through its eye and tie it. And we'd get on a spot on the drop, and he'd hop in with that live bonita and swim down like 50 feet down and let out a bunch of line, like maybe like kind of 50 feet of line. And that thing would be swimming around like this, and those doggies come up out of nowhere to get to that thing, and he'd just yank him awake with his mouth, and we'd swim down and shoot him. It was pretty cool. I think it was a lot of
It's
fun.
kind of like the phone the friend thing where you have your buddies shoot small fish and
Same thing, but this worked even better than that. And I mean, who needs slashers? You got one of those things, your flashers only quick. And I had blue my flashers. They work great. And I always use them. But once I saw that, I'm like, well, this is the way to do it. So now, whenever I do the next trip out that way, I'm going to bring along a setup to catch live bonita, find some way to do it. Because it was pretty cool.
how long of a trip was that? Was that like 2 weeks?
Yeah, it was just a week. That's
Oh,
definitely
okay.
good work. I'm retired now. I can stay forever, but that's sometimes working. So I mean, to get 7 days off of my job was almost impossible.
How do you, I mean, before you were talking about taking shots on 15 feet at the most, which I like, yeah, I watched all this test from a guy, I think he was in Kuwait and he did a lot of pool testing. I forgot his name, but he did all the penetration tests and everything. And the biggest difference is range. Like it seemed like range was the cure all for everything. If you want to penetrate, close the distance on your fish. You can. He had like one band on like an 8 millimeter shaft, and I just remember all these different variations he did. But I remember the one thing was the biggest factor that I saw where it was like, wow, was all the range. Um,
He really did a lot, um, and there was a lot of good. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff in the beginning, you know, um, but now I've seen a lot of like the handle, the shape of the handle is big. That's you can power a gun up with that handle, and it really does. It gives you good control, of the shot, and it really makes a difference. But go back to the thing. Okay, so a fish is like my pelagic guns will shoot a fish 30 feet away. Okay, but it'll shoot a target 30 feet away. Now, will it hit a fish where you wanted to hit them 30 feet away? I doubt it. Because, fish isn't sitting there. You go. It's not. And so, you look at the fish and he's 30 feet away. And yeah, your gun will shoot a double wrap of line and go all the way out there and do that. But if you're taking those shots, all you're doing is missing fish or having them tear off or getting crap shots. When I shoot a fish, I want to make sure that he's done. I don't want to. So I know that, I single wrap all my guns. And it's funny, I had customers say, oh, I want a double wrap. I said, well, I tried to talk them out of it at first. Now I just say, oh, yeah, whatever you want. Triple wrap? Sure, go ahead. Whatever. Put it on there and let it go. But, and you can take it. And, Cameron and I kind of tested that he's the same way. He likes a single wrap. And, we tested it. We take, okay, so you take a single wrap gun. All right, I want you to hold the shaft at the flopper and walk out to the end. And I'll hold the gun like this, and you walk out and you see how far that is. And you're telling me you're taking shots farther than that. I'm telling you, you're missing a lot of fish, or they're tearing off, or you get a lot of bad stories about, oh, well, I would, I could, I should have, And it's just once you figure that out, and then you figure out like, okay, I know 15 feet from my head, my forehead is where I want to be, and you just work toward that, and you just get better at that, become a better hunter. Don't blame your gear, you know, and it just seems to work. And the guys that adapt that, and it's funny when I meet a guy that is really good at it, and I've never met him before, I never talked to him before. We share all the same things. We say, yeah, you want to be like 15 feet away. Yeah, you want to be this, you sing a rap, but you'll meet these other guys that they want to go get the Alamani because they saw a video of the thing she is shooting a target, 40 feet away or whatever it is, some crazy number. And those kind of guns don't make you a good hunter. You know, they make you take shots you normally wouldn't take, and you're gonna miss shots, miss fish.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing, and I literally last week was talking to my friend Cameron from Tag Spear Guns about that double wrap, single wrap, and I was like, if you take your line, I was in my kitchen
Yeah.
and I put my gun on my island and I just dragged it out, and I was like, you're telling me you're gonna take that shot on a fish? The shaft is usually 5 feet, then you add in basically two, so one wrap, it'll give you 15 feet. Like, you're going to take a shot farther than that. Like, what are we shooting at? It's a little different. And then when you, especially with the big fish, then you pull that thing up, you get it up, and you still have all that
Yep.
scary tanglement line to deal with.
Yep. And I like to use cable, when I'm shooting. Not reef fish, but when I'm shooting big fish, I like to use cable. And then see that big long piece of cable, man, is you don't want to do that stuff caught on you, you know. And the good thing I learned, from marlin fishing how to do the marlin wrap thing on your line when you're pulling them up. You just kind of grab it and pull and grab it and pull and grab it, pull. If the fish wants to take off, you just let go and it comes right off it. Then you don't get yourself caught in it. So I'm pretty good about that. Um, same thing on a flow line or a bungee or whatever. I learned how to do that, and I can horse the fish up pretty fast uh, with that. Uh, but you asked me about rig.
Prefer, yeah. Why do you like the cable over a Dyneema?
Because the cable, it where it goes on the shaft. Um, One thing, it's like having the shaft spring. It's like having one of those little springs, those mono springs. You ever seen those little springs that you can put on your shaft? It's better. It's like that. So you don't, you're shooting a big fish let's say on the yellowfin tuna that sits there and just beats your brains out for 30 minutes. It's constantly just doing that. Like a bluefin tuna gives up pretty quick. They're like the weakest. They're the weakest of the weak. To me. And like you shoot a bluefin tuna, they fight a little bit, then they quit. But the yellowfin tuna will just sit there and keep you in the game for a long time. And until you put a second shot on them or something, or get lucky. One thing. Okay, so stop right there. Changing gears, real quick. Yellowfin tuna. He's down there. You're fighting him. You're trying to get to him, and you get this great idea. You're gonna take your knife. You're gonna hit him and knock him out, which is a great idea. But as long as you don't touch his tail, never grab a yellowfin tuna by the tail. Their tail could break your wrist. If you grab them by the tail, they go so fast. They just do this fast thing where it can just literally like break your wrist. And I didn't have it happen, but I got a hold of it for a second, and I felt that what could have happened, knowing that if I put a death grip on it, it probably would have happened. They could have easily like snapped your wrist. I mean, that's how powerful those things are. So anymore, I just like to put a second shot on them. And if it's if I think it's a world record fish, which you don't get that many opportunities, then you got to load. So you got to load the other gun yourself and take it down there and go shoot them. But if it's not a world record fish, I always tell them, give me the matador. The other gun, and go out there and the matador and go down there. And I have a lot of fun doing that. Like we did a trip and uh, just recently this past year, and we got into yellowfin tuna. It's like heavy, like big ones, like all of them are like in the 250s and bigger. And I went down. I did a star shot on 6 different fish for different guys. And I loved it. I mean, I was going down there and I just sit there wait and wait and wait and wait and wait till it's just perfect, and then pull the trigger and you just knock them out. And I think that's pretty cool. I really like doing that. But back to the gear, rigging, tying knots, tying stuff, whatever. So I just do a couple of basic things on like the bands. Neptonic sells this band line. It started off as a reel line. So it started off as years ago. Jerry bought up a reel line. It was the worst reel line ever. The stuff was like, it was the worst. Like literally, if you grab that reel line and the fish was on it, it'd cut through your billets and like cut through your hand. That's how bad it was. So Jerry had a big pile of this stuff, didn't know what to do with it. And he came up with the idea of using it for band tying line because it bites into itself really well. And I just do it's a single figure eight knot on the bands and tie it tight. I've never had it come loose, not one time ever. I mean, it's that good of stuff. And Jerry, he swears by, he ties all his bands with it. That's so I use that stuff exclusively, and I think it's the best stuff out there. Um, the on the wishbones, yeah. I got this wishbone material. It's like 2.5 millimeter stuff. And I just do I do like 4 overhand knots and tie it, and it just makes like a nice little ball. Burn the end, burn the end. I never had that ever pull out either. I've been doing that for years, and that thing works really well. It's like a spectrodynamic type stuff. Neptonic sells it that blue. We've seen it that blue Amstel. Well, it's voidy. I mean, it's the best wishbone stuff ever. And it'll outlast your shaft will get bent, or your bands will rot before that stuff ever goes bad. So it works really well. Um, and then like on the reels, when I tie the I can use a pigtail swivel. I just like those. Some people like the clip swivels. I prefer pigtail just because. Um, but on that, I just do a double overhand wrap on that with double line. So it's getting like 4. Makes a nice little barrel knot and a nice little deal. And then I like to leave a little loop on there, a little small loop on the if you have, say this is the top of the swivel, the line comes through. I like have like a little loop over the top right there. It lets it go for.
To allow it to move
Yeah.
for the chafing.
Yeah. Well, some people will tie it, right down on it. And I don't know. I don't like that. Just, I like the little loop on there, and it works good. So those are like just a couple little knot things. But then of course, all my connections now I've been using, I've always used mono. I've always liked mono. Like I've used it for years, and I've always been like a big fan of it. But I just started using the Spectre, that like the 1.9 hard jacket stuff, like Aussie line kind of stuff. Um, I like that because it is it works great on roller guns. Number one, that's how I started using it, because in the front of a roller gun, they have those funny little things you got to kind of like wrap the line around one over your shaft and around the other. With mono, that doesn't work too good. It doesn't work at all. You have to like use like a 250-pound mono to maybe even bend like that. And after you shoot it like 4 or 5 times, the mono's all cut up and beat up there anyway. So, and I switched over to using the Spectre Dynamo. And I've been using that now for like the last year and a half, pretty much exclusively. And I use it on everything except blue water. So anything I'm doing is not blue water. I use that.
Do you double crimp your cable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've shot like a 160-pound doggy, which is a single crimp, and it was fine. But think about this, your brain has to go here. My brain does. You go half around the world. You just spent 10 grand to go out and do this trip. That 250-pound doggy comes up, and you shoot him with a single crimp, and a crimp pulls for some reason. You're going to lose your mind. So when I do a trip like that, I'm rigging for big fish. I do a double, and I use the copper crimps. Just the actual copper color ones with no, just those. I think they bite really well onto the cable. I use that 480-pound uncoated cable, just the regular stuff, because it crimp gets to bite in there really, really good and hold it. I've never had one slip. I never had an issue. So I like that. So what started me doing that though was in Flapas Montana, the World Cup tournament. It was one year, and first day, first spot. You have to load your gun in the water there. Then once you loaded the boat, you can't drive around with the boat. So, my little trick I do is I sit on the edge of the boat, and I get my gun. I'm getting ready to jump in the water to do it. But right as I do that, I take a flasher, I whip it out there, like, I don't know, 30 feet away from the boat. And then I'll hop on the water, start loading my gun. So I'm loading my gun. You put 3 bands on, get your slip tip on, get tucked in your band. It takes it's a cycle. It takes a little bit of time. Well, I'm looking out there and I see my flasher coming down. Here's a wahoo coming up on it. It's like a 60-pound nice one. And I swam over to him and he kind of turned from the flasher like right below me and I shot, perfect shot, broke his spine. And he's just going like that, kind of coming around the circle. And he comes by my mono and he just cut it. It swam off with my slip tip, my shafts, and everything. I ended up getting the second place in the tournament that year, and that fish cost me. That fish would have been the first place fish, the first day of the tournament. So after that, I only use cable because they're not going to bite through the cable and swim off with it. And you're not going to have a big fish like a dogtooth tuna or yellowfin tuna or something like that. Wear out the where it connects on the shaft. So I kind of like that. But yeah, the wahoo's biting through. That is burned in my mind. So
Yeah, and I don't think you can appreciate how crazy a wahoo's mouth is until you've seen it, and it's like
have you seen people get climb like their ankles and stuff in the boat? It it,
it's like
it yeah, running with scissor. You get to the razor blade with somebody just a box cutter and hit him in the ankle. Yeah, that's what it's like. It's crazy. And then,
yeah, I think they're crazier than sharks the way they bite. I mean, the they're so sharp. It's literally like two razor blades. It's the sharpest knife.
yeah.
Yeah, it's humbling, that's for sure when you see that thing. But yeah, how many times have you done the Palapa Spontana tournament?
I'm not sure. I'm doing it this year, so it's been. I haven't done it like the last couple of years. And before that, I did it like 1 year. It missed a couple of years, but I did like the second time they ever had it way back when. And I've been going and I went like I don't know 5 or 6 years in a row, and so I think I've probably done it like 8, maybe 9. I don't know, something like that. I've won it like 3 times. And I gotten top 3 finish like I don't know 4 or 5 times, whatever. And um, I love that tournament. It's fun. It's okay. So what I like about it really a lot, I tell this to everybody. I said, there's not a lot of places in the world where you can go and have a real opportunity. I call it a real opportunity, meaning that there's those fish are there and you'll see them and other people will see them that you're there. But you have the opportunity to shoot a sailfish, a marlin, a yellowfin tuna, a uh, a wahoo, uh, a giant amberjack, a cubera, big cubera, you know, and then I've big rooster fish. You ever the opportunities there to shoot 7 great fish, and like a big rooster fish there's like 70 pounds. Guys in my boat have gotten 70 pounder. My biggest one ever is 45. Now I've shot the 40s, and when I shoot them, the 80 or 90 comes up and looks at him, looks at me, and then swims off. I just like lose my mind because you know trying to figure out how I could get that fish off my shaft and shoot that one. Um, but yeah, it's one of the cool places.
Yeah, yeah, my good friend shot a 90 pounder there. It was almost a world record.
Yes, it's wild. That is to see one of those things in the water is just incredible. Yeah, they're there. All these fish are there. And you'll see them, and it's just a matter of how good a hunter you are. And then to put it together over a 3-day tournament. I used to like it better when it's 4 days. They used to do 2 days on, 1 day off, and 2 days on. I like that format better. Now they just do a 3-day on kind of deal. It's okay. I protested about that one year.
I've sponsored it a couple years in a row. This year, they actually just reached out to me last week, and I'll be moving. I'll be in the middle of moving, so I wouldn't be able to like turn around and do a podcast with Tim. And
Yeah.
so I told him, unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to sponsor it this year because I just don't. It won't work out. But I had some buddies go down there, and I heard it's just a great time. I mean, it depends on. I heard it's the most um collaborative spearfishing tournament, like just good people talking, like just so much knowledge there. My friends from Guam went there and they were like, man, you can learn so much by going there.
Is that Ron Aguana?
Ron, so he wasn't there that time.
Yeah.
I know Ron. Yeah.
I do. over there. Yeah, he's a good guy. What a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good friend of my buddy, my friend that's a surgeon that I dive with, Michael Tripp. I don't know if you know Mike Tripp. He was,
Yeah.
yeah, he's good friends with Ron, but he was stationed in Guam for a long time. He's a great diver, but my friend Rob Cross, buddy, and Manette and those guys came up there a few years ago for a tournament, maybe 5 years ago, and they did pretty well. But it's just I've heard too, like the viz can be hit or miss. I guess last year was pretty bad. I guess just bad conditions, like everywhere. But they were just blown away by that amount of knowledge and that resort walking around there, and for them too. It was cool. He said it was awesome.
Yeah, the first time I went there, I won again. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't. It was a long time ago. Ian Puckridge was there, and that guy was on fire, man. He knew exactly what he was doing. He showed up and blew up and just did a great job. And he had these throw flashers that nobody else had. You know, and he shot this big rooster fish and a big sailfish and some other stuff. And it was crappy weather. We went that in November that year, and November was it's fishy, but it's blowing so hard. The conditions weren't good and whatever. And then Tim moved it to like June or July. And the June July time frame seems to work pretty good. The weather's usually pretty good. The fish are usually good. Um, but you'd mentioned like the water conditions. I've noticed like the last 5 years down there, the water's been off. It's just it's not the same. It's not that blue. It's not that clean blue. It's not that and the blue water fish haven't been around as much. Like there's a few wahoo there and a few sailfish and marlin and stuff, but not like it was 5 plus years ago. 5 plus years ago, I mean it was on fire. And they had El Ninos and La Ninas and all those different things, and it seemed to be affecting it. I think conditions are good right now. I'm not sure.
Which it's kind of funny about that though, GR, because the water temps have been fairly warm up here in San Diego for the last few years. This winter, uh, last spring was like the coldest it's been, I think, in like 20 years that I remember was 52 on the surface. But this winter was actually a cold winter. We had water temp in the 50s. And before that, it was always like, for the years before that, it seemed like it was always in the low 60s. We like lucked out with like warm winter. Um, but this year feels way more normal. So I'm curious to see.
And see, well, I was just down there a couple weeks ago. Not in Palawas. I was way north. I was way north of there. Um, but I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, God, there's so much life. Uh, there's we camped out on the beach. And that little cove we were on in the morning, there's like 10,000 sardines in this cove. Probably 10 million sardines in this cove. And there's like 100 pelicans all diving at 5:30 in the morning, just dive bombing it. And the yellowtail are smashing it, like just this, blue planet kind of stuff. And my buddy Wiley and I just jumped in the water at 5:40 in the morning and swam out there and shot, yellowtail and stuff. And it was fun. It was pretty cool. But anyway, we went out and dove some areas where it was cold and dirty. And then we went and looked like 10 miles south of there, and it was crystal clear. It was just beautiful. So I'm hoping that there's like clear water kind of pushing north up into the Sea of Cortez. Maybe that would what we're looking forward to seeing. I know right now as we speak, they've been crushing the wahoo down there in Bravo. Guys, I'm several lines, been doing really, really well down there. Getting great fish. So I'm hoping some of those big wahoo, they're getting big ones too, like 80 pounders, like big ones. Yeah.
They are. And I know I talked to Tim, he said in November too, they get a run of like big, I think it was November, where they get like big wall.
They do, but I've only been there once in November, and I didn't want to go back. It's cheap. You're better off going in November. You're better off going the other side and going to Mag Bay. It's just a much
Mad Bay, yeah.
I love it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, Mag Bay is great. I love that diving over there. It's cool. Big fish, lots of fish. November was really, really good. That's when we were there. I picked my my camera, my photos. November 15th. Hyper crop is there. Pretty cool. Um, but yeah, so that's a great. I love the Sea of Cortez. It's just a lot of fish, a lot of neat time in there, and the vibe. I like the vibe there. It's the kind of laid back, chill vibe. You know, have a good time. And I'm lucky because I'm the only like blue-eyed, used to be blonde hair guy that speaks Spanish. So I'm able to go down there, get along and be with everybody, and yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Um,
I understand. Yeah, Baja is a special place for us here.
you know what really kills me is you guys can fly there from like San Diego to what La Paz for like $149 direct or something like that. I have to fly like make stops here and there. My ticket's like $1,200, and it's like I lived in San Diego and I could be there for $149. I'd go there every Friday night. I would just fly there and just do weekend dive trips there every week. There's no reason not to. I spent more than that. And gas in my boat the other day was $1,000 going out to go, get a few apples and pompano and stuff. I mean, you could, for $1,000, you could fly there, stay at Guapas Matana, go out every day and shoot fish for 3 days. Yeah. But
Yeah, I have friends without kids that do that, just that. I mean, they're like they it's easy enough. I mean, for me, it's usually just conflict of but I try to go to Mexico once a month,
yeah, that's
um,
great. Yeah,
some way, shape, or form.
that's really cool. You're spoiled. You're spoiled. Yeah, good having there. Yeah, we go.
We are. I totally agree.
Yeah, well, we could go to the Bahamas and do that, but Bahamas and Mexico's way better. Key West, I can go to Key West all the time as opposed to but Mexico is way better. I just find
So the Bahamas, though, it's all pole spear.
it's all full of spear, but it's the fish. It's fun. It's a blast, but it's just not the same as you know going to a place where you can shoot those fish at his name. There's 7 different fish. I mean, Bahamas, you can shoot a black grouper, you can shoot a hogfish, you can shoot a black fruit grouper and a hogfish, you can shoot a yellow barrel, you can shoot a black grouper and a hogfish. It's just not as not as the spectrum's not as big.
What you also have not just spear guns, but you have pole spears.
Yeah.
And when we were talking before, I mean, I've heard this from you before where, you're not going to tinker with something if it's works. So you thought you could improve it basically. So I know you got into shafts and then your pole spears. What do you think, like with your pole spears, what kind of sets them apart, or what were some things that you tried to implement in your pole spears?
So like the Gen 1 pole spear, what I wanted was something that was lighter, it was strong. Everybody that build a pole spear, they want one that's faster, better, more, all that. So, but there was like, Billfish Republic made this big giant thing, that Manny Quick pole spear. Do you ever see one of those? Big giant, heavy, slow. Those are designed for like shooting a fish point blank in the rock. That's it, and you can't shoot a fish out in front of you because they're too slow. They just drop like. Well, then, um, Brad Thornborough at Headhunter, he came up with a great idea. The first Predator full spear. That thing was fast. It was like, and actually before him, there was uh, Sea Stinger. Sea Stinger was the first company to come out with like a really great full spear. Prior to that, I was just using those old gold JBL aluminum full spears. And, we would dial them up and put different slip tips on and do stuff to them, make them better and put grips on them so you could, hold them better and stuff. But then when Brad came out with this carbon fiber, full spear, and and they made them longer. They were like 10 feet long. You could shoot a wahoo with them. They were next generation, but they were very strong. They would break pretty easy. You shoot a Kubera snapper and he twist his head or a grouper and just snap the end of it. So then everybody was going. They were kind of vacillating back toward the big heavy duty ones, and so I kind of came up with this idea between to do something that was a little bit more robust than the Predator, and a little bit lighter, faster than the other ones, and did that. And mine they were breaking. At the connection points, the metal was too thin there, and whatever. I had to go back because I went to Gen 2. The Gen 2 was I did a hybrid. I did half aluminum in the front and half carbon fiber in the back, which gave it like a little bit of umph. And the other part about my pole spears too, back up a little bit, was balance. So I set these pole spears up to where you hold them in your hand, they're just perfectly balanced. and I put the grip right with the balance point. Where you see a lot of people, they pull the spear all the way up to the very front of the pull spear. When you do that, the back of the pull spear drops down, because like you're holding up here and the back wants to drop down. So when you let go of it, it kind of, goes like that as opposed to just going straight. So I came up with this idea to make this pull spear work balanced and shot in the same grip place every time. You pull it right to that grip and you're holding it perfectly balanced. And when you let go, it goes to the same spot every time. And that's pretty much what I did. And nobody else had done it. And it is pretty cool. So then I found if you put that heavier aluminum piece up front, okay. So by putting the heavier aluminum piece up front, you can move it, you shift that balance point farther forward. Okay. So gives you a little bit more band stretch. So you get a little bit more power, a little bit more oomph, and on the bigger pull spears, like I can use like a 12-foot pull spear. I can literally shoot a fish 12 feet away. It's kind of crazy with a pull spear. You know, and that's like nobody's doing that. That's pretty cool. So, well then I kind of want to get away from the aluminum ones because you have to, the expense, my upholsteries are not cheap. That's the problem. They cost so much to build because you can't go out and buy enough carbon fiber to get a break in the price. Or to buy enough I gotta buy like 5,000 feet of carbon fiber. I'm not buying 5,000 feet of carbon fiber on something I'm gonna change next year anyway. So you got to kind of play that game, trying to find something better. So anyway, I found a different carbon fiber supplier, and I found a little bit thicker wall, which allowed me to make a thicker connection point and a little bit thicker tube, and kind of do some things. And the new ones with the G3s are bulletproof. They're like I haven't had any issues, no problems, no anything. Everybody loves them. I went on a trip. There's 4 of us, and we all used them. And we shot like 30 fish every day, 30 plus fish. And it was fun. We were having a blast. And so we don't need to change it. Don't change anything. They're great. And so, and then now, I kind of leaning back toward wanting to do that aluminum part again in the front. But I can't find a supplier that can make the aluminum the same diameter that I want for the good carbon fiber piece that I have. You follow? So they have to match up perfectly and be the same size, then they connect. So I'm struggling with that. I'm trying, and yeah, I could take a piece of aluminum and have it turned down, but then the expense goes way up. To turn down a 4-foot piece of aluminum, is not cheap. So, trying to figure out some way to find a supplier, they can do that without charging an arm and a leg. But right now, the G3 as it is, pure carbon, it's great. It's doing good. And, I'm taking that with me to the Azores. I'm going to try and shoot a big eye tuna and maybe a bluefin tuna with it. We'll see. I'm more interested in doing that than I am with the gun. I got my gun already. That's easy. Just point and shoot, whatever. But the full sphere would be kind of another cool thing to do. And I've got this whole design.
That would be awesome. How are you gonna rig that up?
That's where I was going. So I've got this. So I've been playing around. I have all these O-rings, these little rubber O-rings, and I'm gonna put on the tip of the full spear. I have like full spear tip, the slip tip, and I'm gonna have a 14 piece of Spectra, double braided, double back braided. It's 1,200 pounds, so double back braided would be 2,400 pounds. But I'm gonna run it all the way the length of the spear to the back. But on the spear, I'm gonna have these little O-rings every that far, like maybe like 18 inches or so. These little O-rings, and I'm gonna take that line and kind of pull like a loop halfway through it. So when you shoot a fish, it's just gonna go pop, 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 pop. They're all gonna pop right off, and he'll be direct onto to the flow line. And so that's my idea. So we'll see how it works. I haven't even tried it yet. But I played with it in the shop, and I have 4 or 5 of my good friends look at it and go, "That'll work." We all say that'll work. That should work. I can't see the fail point on it. So, hopefully it works. Again, the headhunter guys, they came up with something called center line deal, or it runs on the inside of the tube. They have some. I haven't even looked at one, but I kind of get the idea where he's going with it. But I'm taking the whole full completely out of the equation. I'm gonna shoot them. The line's gonna pop off, and they're gonna go, and hopefully I don't get caught up in it and lose a finger or something stupid. But we'll see. I think it's all clean. I think it's all okay. I don't think there'll be any problems. We'll see what happens.
I'm going to be looking forward to seeing that. That's going to be awesome.
Well, if I get it all put together, I'll do a quick little video, put a story or something.
Yeah. Do you mess around with the roller spear guns at all?
Yeah. Yeah. I really like the saber roller. Yeah, it's simple saber roller gun. Um, I still prefer traditional gun. Yeah, but I've been this past year I've been using the 105 single roller a lot. Pretty much like every trip, and I've gotten where I kind of like it. The double rollers, I like them, but I'm not as crazy about them as and a lot of the guys are, like Chris Coates. He's using the double roller. He loves us. He's like that. He just like lives and breathes by it. Um, and I built a very similar gun to his carbon fiber cuttlefish barrel, double Hermes, head roller on it, all the same components. And mine's a little different because I do the balancing lead weight inside the barrel to make it to where it's like this, no order, not like that, or whatever. That's kind of like my little. I love balance. To me, balance is everything in a spear gun or bull spear or whatever. I'm all about the balance point. It's like you look at a motorcycle like a dirt bike, it has good suspension, how it handles. When something handles really really well, you go faster, better, more, whatever. Same thing as spear guns. I like a balanced spear gun, and that my first tuner gun I bought a Jordan Hamilton. You ever heard of
I
him?
know Hamilton. Yeah, he makes beautiful work of art.
So I've had two of his guns. Um, and the first one I got the war of the thing, and it was like perfectly balanced. I couldn't understand it. It was just like this thing you could just turn it. It was like a 72-inch gun. You could turn it like this, up and down and around, and like you didn't even have a gun in your hand. It was unbelievable. And so that got me thinking about balance. And then so when I started doing spear guns, like to sell, I that was all I cared about was balance. I wanted these things to be perfectly balanced, and that's what makes them shoot good. So, um, that a lot of guys they still, it's funny you see some of these big name guys trying to have these good guns, but they're not balanced. They're just it's like you hold them in your hand, it's like, yeah, this is like 2001. You know, it's not where it needs to be. There's better stuff. But the double back to rollers, I messed around with the inverted stuff, and I don't like them. It's just too complicated. There's too many moving parts. And, spearfishing doesn't need to be that complicated. I've never,
Yeah.
this is Jerry Garrett's line, but I'll steal it. I've never missed a fish because I wasn't using a roller gun, you know, and
Right.
I just, I'm an old school guy, and I can make it happen with 3 bands or 4 bands, and make it happen. Um,
Yeah, and I see the mechanical advantage to it, but I just don't it's not a necessary um I just don't think it's necessary for what I do. I don't know. I mean, it's like a
same way, and and I used a double roller, a 125 double roller. I used that for a while. Took it on some of those trips and all. I don't know, just the time it takes to load it and think about it and do it. Yeah, it kind of throws me off my game. My muscle memory is not there. My muscle memory is on the regular traditional guy. And I think that's why I've been using the single roller for the past year, is just to kind of get to see the other side of it. I like to see the other side of it. Like, what is everybody raging about these things? And it's good. I mean, I like it. It shoots good. It's pretty much dead on every shot. But I still kind of think, and when I switch back to the regular gun again, I go, oh, this is the regular gun. Yeah.
Yeah, I made a double roller. Um it's awesome. It shoots like a laser, but it takes forever to load it, and it's it teaches you to be real uh conservative when you shoot because you don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Conservative is the word because, you don't want to shoot some BS fish and, have to go through that whole loading process again, you know?
right. It's not happening fast, that's for sure. And I've tried. Um, but how about roller spear guns? Have you messed with those at all? I haven't really paid any attention to them.
Roller full spear?
Yeah, I'm sorry, roller pole spears. I keep saying roller spear.
Yeah,
Roller
so
pole spears.
roller pole spears. I had just like the guns. I hesitated at first on those because I'd always used this traditional man. Um, when you get into these bigger guns, these bigger ones, I like the roller. It's when you have a 10-foot pole spear and you get that roller on there. I mean, it's fast and it's smooth and it's like it really it's good. I like it. I think a 10 foot. Now, if you're using like a smaller spear, like a 7-foot spear, traditional is the way to go. I think that's the way to go. But as you move up in size in these bull spears, I think when you get it like 8, 9, 10, you get in that size those spears. My favorite size one to use is an 8.5. That's why I like when I go to the Bahamas or whatever. I like that. That's my favorite size to use. Um, but and then it, you can. I like to use like a 10 sometimes as well. It just depends what kind of fish I'm hunting. Um, But use like the meat stick, like shooting like the hogfish and the snappers and the smaller groupers and stuff. I like using the 8.5. It's the one you can go out and get dinner with. The dinner gooder. Just look pretty good.
Get a meal.
Yeah.
And then I noticed too your shafts. When you originally started out making shafts,
Yeah.
that was kind of your thing. What was your kind of engineering idea behind that? What were some things you were trying to improve on those?
So shafts were just like I said, there was a guy in town. His name was Ray Erder, older guy. Like I've known Ray pretty much my whole life. He passed away a few years ago. He was like in his 90s. But Ray was a machinist, and he was a diver, so he started making shafts. Um, and then when I started shooting the long guns, and the Rife guns, they had the shark fin shafts. Which back in the day we all had was knot shafts. It was a different deal. So I went to Ray and said, "Hey, how do we do this?" And he came with the idea that the ones that had like a little dog house had like a little picks rather than have fins. They had like a little pins that went up. So we started making those, um, and all my buddies we were all shooting those and using those, and then Ray got older and kind of retired from doing that because his eyesight got bad. So much you get your guns and everything was kind of like not where it's supposed to be and whatever not. And I give him a hard time too. Like I gave him a hard time all the way till he passed away. I was like, "Hey, old man, you messed up another one." Just give him a hard time. But he was such a great guy. Um, and then we have another friend, this guy Lou Bonzi. He was in our dive club, and Lou was a retired machinist. He was in aerospace machining, and he and his brother had a big company. They sold it, and he retired. And Lou was into spearfishing, so Lou and I were talking, and I said, "Hey, I want you to make one with these welded on shark fins and whatever." So we designed a shark fin that looked right. Um, and made the ones with the look a little step up on there. You know what I'm talking about? So when you're shooting an enclosed, yeah, yeah, it works for the enclosed track guns. It keeps the it makes it ride better down the track and everything. So um, and then you just kind of branched off into making just different sizes. Like nobody was making 7.5 mil shafts. That was like a hard shaft to get. So I started making those and, started making, the Euro shafts. There's only like all Euro shafts come out of Europe and they're all made of the inox steel, which is kind of weak. So we started, using the 17.4, heat treating it and making it good. And then Lou sold out his company to M85. He's making shafts now. And we're on this. It's funny. We all work like in a co-op. It's funny. I rent out space from this guy, and in that same building, there's 10,000 square foot building. There's like 5 different businesses in there, and I've got a wood shop that makes guns for me. I've got the machine shop that makes the shafts for me. We've got all this stuff. We're all like right in this like little co-op thing. We all share knowledge and info and stuff. It's pretty cool. It's fun. It's fun to go to work every day. When I go in there in the shop and they all crack up because I come in, I'm there for 2 hours and I'm gone. And so okay, I've reached my max today. I got to go. And they're there working all day long and hard. It's kind of fun.
That's a good position to be in, though. I mean, yeah, you seem to done you've done well in your life.
Yeah. Or way back when I made my first spear guns, like in the mid 70s. Back then, I mean, I rode my bicycle like halfway across town, like probably like 15 miles across town. and bought a 20-foot piece of steel and rode home on my bicycle with a 20-foot piece of steel. Imagine what that looked like. And I was like 14 years old, and I got a hacksaw blade and I cut it and I drilled it and I made it and I made a flopper out of beaten piece of metal and it was crazy. And made these original guns that we shot in Tampa Bay, and those I made myself. Everything I used a jigsaw to cut out wood, and the trigger was my skateboard. I took my old skateboard, and I cut the trigger out of it, made that for a pull, looked like a Nautilus camp. I think it pushed the spear off the pin, like the pins like this, and the spear sat on top of it, and then it pushed it up like that, and it came down and slammed on the. I had an open trap back then, but like you heard about like the Rob Allen rail guns. I was making rail guns before Rob Allen was even alive. It was funny. Well, is it this thing we landed the shaft and ride the rail out the thing, and it had a little tube on the end of it. They were really fun guns. And I think about all the fish I used to shoot with that, but now people are doing it with pole spears. So it's you're shooting the same number of fish I was shooting back then, but with my crude spear gun. The new pole spear is like a spear gun almost.
Yeah, it's amazing to see when you travel, like you have to see some of the innovations. Some of like the old cultures have managed to make do with what they got because they didn't have the internet, so they just figured it out. Um, what's next for you? I mean, you're gonna go to the Azores, try to pole spear, shoot big eye tuna. Um, do you have any goals for your company, like Red Tide or?
I just keep fine tuning everything, and you know there's just I'm trying to figure out what's the next step. I like to. Part of me wants to just go ahead and just start selling everybody else's stuff on my website. Just be like a Spear America. Just kind of do that. And I've fiddled with it a little bit. I've showed a few different products on there that are outside of my thing, and they sell, but it's not like what I had hoped for. Like I do the wetty wetsuits and the wetty products, and I met Darren Shields at a tournament, and we talked about spearing and stuff, and he told me about his wetsuits, and I got one and I tried it. I said, okay, let's do it. Started doing his wetsuits, and he those guys down there, they're really cool. Have you ever done a share with that with Darren Shields?
I have friends that know them well, and I've heard they're amazing, just good dudes.
Have you go to their YouTube channel? It's called Wetty TV, and watch their stuff. These guys are just blasting fish with like single band rail guns. I mean, their level was blast. I mean, they're killing everything. These guys are like on it, and but there's a place like New Zealand where it's cold year round, and so these guys have really made some great wetsuits, and their wetsuits are like I think they're the best wetsuits out there, just as far as like an off the shelf wetsuit. They're really really good. They fit great. They right stretch, the right everything, and um, I think they nailed it. And then they make great gloves and booties and all that stuff. They really do a good job of that. Their guns are like a Rob Allen kind of gun. It's like you can never wear one out. They're just like bulletproof. They're just made. They're like a more robust version of a Rob Allen. They have an enclosed barrel in the front. Which I hadn't shot one of those in years, and I kind of like it. It's kind of different. Like, I like open. I like this. I've been using it a lot lately, and the smaller guys, and I really like them. And but yeah, those guys are doing some good stuff. You need to talk to them. They have some good story, and they've been around the world. They've done a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. I was debating to keep, the show alive, to be honest with you, and just because things were getting so busy and things and changes in my life, moving and things like that, and I was like, uh, I just enjoy still talk shooting shop with everybody. So
Yeah, that's smart. When we were talking at first, I said, "Yeah, just ask me anything. I got I have a story or an opinion on it. It's just there's really no forbidden ground. I can sit there and talk about me, but I just rather just talk shop, stuff. You know,
do you have any plans for going to shoot one of those big halibuts up in Norway or Alaska or anything like that?
You can see right here, I'm really, really skinny and have no body fat at all. I'm still built like a college runner, you know? Um, so me and the cold water, we don't have a lot in common. Um, when I come to California and dive bluefins, I about die. You know, it's really cold. Going to the Azores would be cold. You know, I have a 7 mil custom suit I'm bringing over there. Because you know it's usually not super sunny over there, and it's cold. You know, it's like can be miserable. Um, but yeah, I mean, when the first time I saw the halibut video, you know, a couple of years ago, like everybody else, I'm like, I gotta go do that, you know. And then I saw these guys walking around in snow and you know in freezing, and I said, you know what, I'll let them have all the glory. I'm just gonna sit there and watch it and enjoy it, you know. Um, but that's not me. I've been to Tahiti a couple times. I like it out there, you know, diving those islands. It's remote, you know, like the one place I went was 600 miles south of Tahiti. The other place I went was 1,100 miles east of Tahiti. And, you know, you're middle of nowhere. I mean, it's pretty cool. Um, and I was diving with, Gerard Grave, but, you know, yeah. And he's a great guy, you know, and he knows every inch. He knows every one of those islands like the back of his hand. It's crazy.
World record doggies and wahoo and everything.
It's just it's a great thing. It's just a, you know, now that I have time, I like to go back out there and spend some time, and I will make a trip out there where I get to stay, you know, for 2 or 3 weeks and just, you know, go out there and do that. But before, I mean, literally, it takes, you know, 2 days to get there and 2 days to get back. And, you know, you can only walk for a few days and you got to come, you know, you have to leave the party early. You have to do the Irish goodbye, you know, you know, sneak out the back door. But, I and see, and I don't like to bounce places too. That's another thing about me. I don't like to go back to the same place. It's so funny. Some guys go, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go back to Latham Island. I want to go back to Latham Island." I'm like, why? You go there once, man. It's just you've done it. There's so many other places in the world to go. You know, and I want to go to all these other places. I don't want to keep diving the same backyard, you know, over and over again. And you know, to me, to go to Baja, that's not like a trip. That's just like a weekend thing for me. It's like just a fun little diversion. But to go to these big trips where you go like, you know, around the world and you're going someplace, doing something that you know, just dreamed about. And, you know, to me, I'd like to go to Indonesia. I'd like to stay out there for maybe 3, 4 weeks, you know, and be that whole thing. I got some good connections out there. Um, you know, uh, Fiji, maybe. It's kind of like, I'd rather go to Tahiti, you know, and there's still some islands that Tahiti have been to. You know, there's still some good islands out there. Um, the one thing in Tahiti you got to have a gut for is sharks, and the sharks out there are insane. I mean,
I've been there on a surf trip once, and we dove too.
yeah.
And
Huge.
yeah,
Yellowstone, and don't get them in the water, get in the boat. It's going to get vaporized. You know, it's just it's hard to like. And I shot a 100 pound wahoo out there, and you know I landed it. But I mean, I shot that fish, and I knew it was coming. And out there, you know, if you shoot a doggy or a wahoo, and he swims off the reef, like out in the blue water, you're good. But if he swims toward the reef and up on the reef, you're done. You'll never see that fish again. He's gonna get eaten. You know, it's just and you don't have control over that other than just trying to, you know, get yourself between the fish there and maybe hopefully when you shoot him, he goes the other way. You know.
yeah, and like you said, you're out in the middle of nowhere, and you you don't want to get bit. I don't care what size the shark is.
Yeah. Um, but there's still a lot of the world out there. I want to dive and see and stuff. There's some of the stuff in West Africa I'd like to do. They got these giant coubaras there. I mean, like 130, 140 pound coubaras there. And I'd like to go maybe get one of those. That'd be fun.
I have actually researched that same thing and looking at fishing. You know, if you a little tip for everybody listening, if you want to find out where fish are, just look at fishermen.
See, that's been my line forever. That's how I found a lot of these places was, you know, I was marlin fishing way back when. I used to subscribe always sport fishing magazines, and they talk about the thing. And I contact those captains and ask them when's the best time of the year to come target that fish. And I say, okay, can I set up a fishing trip with you? They go, okay, yeah, we got you booked down for April to, you know, whatever. then we show up on the dock. We got our dive gear to go. I thought you were fishing. Yeah, we're spearfishing. I didn't tell you that. I thought, oh yeah, we're good. You don't have to worry about it. That was how I used to go. And you can roll it into those guys. But I always have the fishermen's, you know, um, I put them first. In other words, divers that really do it. The divers that put fishermen first are doing a good job for our community. The divers that put spearfishing first are not doing a good job because you can't go in there and mess up fishing or do things that fishermen think are bad or whatever. You have to kind of play their game. It's their ocean. There's 10 times more than there are of us. We're the minority, and you got to play the game. If you don't play the game, you're going to get crushed. And there's been places where they just won't take the divers out anymore. Yeah, they just
Yeah, there's spots in Mexico like that.
yeah
Yeah,
yeah they just shut them down. It's like man,
because the guys have come and just shot the whole place up.
yeah, and that's not good. So it's but be a good steward of the whole thing, and um you get invited back. And it's funny because like once the captains get to know you, like they know me, they know that my group's good and we're gonna do the right thing and everything's gonna be good. They like us. They like to have us come down there. Then it's kind of exciting. They tell other friends, man, these guys are insane. These guys, they swim down with the sharks. It's pretty funny. But yeah, the world has definitely got some cool stuff. And that Alaska or Norway, yeah, I always like going there. Just
Yeah, it's cold.
California's cold to me. That's crazy.
It is. It is though. I mean, I'm used to it, but Hawaii was cold to me when I came back from Guam.
Yeah.
You just got to get used to it. But if you're paying, you have, like you said, if you have the opportunity to go anywhere in the world, you're going to pay to be freezing. I don't know, man. That, like you said, there's some really amazing tropical places out there. Papua New Guinea, all kinds of places.
Yeah. Papua New Guinea's on the radar. What's the other good French island out there? Uh,
Um, there's the Solomon Islands, the New Caledonia.
New Caledonia. Yes.
Yeah,
You're there.
yeah,
In there. So New Guinea and Papua New Guinea are a few places I like to go. The Maldives. I like to go out there. That was pretty cool. Well, and in some of these places I go, they determine that you can't go steering there.
right.
And you look at them on their. I get on Google Earth. On the Google Earth, I get on there and I look for places that are, they're just totally removed and totally out there. And, I just geek on those things. Yeah. Yeah. And you look at the topography of it all, you see like the one thing I learned from G is that if you find an island that has a lagoon on it, like just a lagoon around the island, like a barrier reef on the outside, and then you have that lagoon, those are the ones that have the good fish. That's where you want to go. The ones that are just like a volcano comes up out there and there's nothing on the edges of it, they're just okay. But the lagoon has all the fry fish and everything. There's like an ecosystem there. And it's like there's bait fish and there's all kinds of stuff in it. That's what makes those areas really good.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I mean, GR, thank you for your time. I could literally talk to you for probably another lifetime, but I don't want to keep you. I know it's late there, and my wife's got dinner ready, but I appreciate you sharing all your knowledge and being such a great steward for the sport. It's awesome to finally get to talk to you. I know it's been a long time, and I've wanted to talk to you forever. I just wanted to save, or I don't know. I just wanted to make sure I was ready. I want to do my research before I talk to you because I didn't want to waste it. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, I had a good time and thank you so much for having me. And we need to get together and do a trip. Let's go dive.
Sounds amazing. Just call me.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. You take care. Thank you.